Dear all, welcome to today's class on sampling. Now in the last class we discussed what is sampling and we also saw the differences between population and sampling, right? So in today's class I'm going to discuss these three concepts. I'm going to show you what are the different types of sampling, what we mean by probability sampling and what we mean by non-probability sampling. So in summary, all the details regarding the classification of sampling. Now, before I start, let me give you a brief snapshot here. So this is the typology of the whole classification of sampling. I know it looks really complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to explain each of these concepts very soon in detail. Now, just to take you through the whole classification part by part. So broadly speaking, sampling can be divided into two broad categories: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Now under probability sampling, we have further four different types of sampling method. So simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. Now on the other hand, under non-probability sampling, we have five different types of sampling method: quota sampling, purposive sampling, convenience sampling, volunteer sampling, and finally snowball sampling. So again, I'm going to explain each of these concepts very soon. Alright, now let's start with the definitions and details of different types of sampling. First of all, in this video, I'm going to discuss what is probability sampling and what is non-probability sampling. So let's start with probability sampling first. What do we mean by probability sampling? So again, just as before, I'm going to start with the boarding definition and then I'm going to explain each of the parts of the definition in detail. So here goes the boarding definition. With probability sampling, the chance or probability of each case being selected from the target population is known. And usually, every case has an equal chance or opportunity of being selected. I know it sounds really difficult, right? It's complicated and so many technical words in one single definition. Don't worry, I'm going to explain each of these concepts part by part in very detail. Now, before I go into the details of the technical parts in this definition, I would request you to go back and have a look at the video where I explained what do I mean by case, what do I mean by population. Now, without having a clear idea about these two concepts, you will not be able to understand a single thing in this video, right? So please go back and watch the video on case and population. Now, once you have a thorough idea and clear idea about these two concepts, please come back and then start watching this video again. Now, if we take a look, in this definition, we have two main parts. Number one, the chance or probability of each case being selected from the target population is known. So we know the probability of being selected, and every case has an equal chance or opportunity of being selected. Now, what do we mean by these two concepts? These are the two questions. What do we mean by known probability and what do we mean by equal chance? So if we understand these two concepts here, we will be automatically able to understand what we mean by probability sampling. So I'm going to start explaining these two concepts now. What do we mean by known probability and what do we mean by equal chance? So what is known probability? Now let's start with an example here. I know in this course, in each section, we have 47 students, right? Now, for this example, let's assume in this course, in each class, I have only 2 students. So the whole class consists of 2 students only. So one of the students is the handsome looking Talal and the other student is Sanjana. Alright, so I have only these 2 students in my whole section. So my whole population consists of only these 2 people. Alright. Again, I do not have 47 students in the class. For this example, only these 2 students are reading in my class. So my population consists of these 2 people only, Talal and Sanjana. Now, if I say that from these 2 people, I'm going to select only one of you as my sample, in that case, can you make a guess? What will be the probability of any one of you being selected? It's very easy. Again, the question is, from these 2 people, if I want to select any one of you, in that case, what is the probability of any one of you getting selected? Yes, it's very easy. It is 50%. So 50% chance for Talal to get selected or 50% chance for Sanjana to get selected. Now, again, probability is a concept that you read in your Eco 102 or Eco 202 course. Now, in case you have forgotten the concept of probability, I would request you to go back and have a look at the concept of probability, right? Because it was taught in very detail in your Eco 102 or Eco 202 course. Now, I cannot explain this concept here because it's going to take a very long time if I start explaining the concept of probability from the very beginning. All right. So I know it's very normal to forget this concept. However, I would request you to go back and watch a video on probability on how to calculate probability. All right. So once you are done, please come back again and start rewatching this video. All right. I guess by now everyone has seen the video on probability and knows how to calculate probability, right? So let me briefly explain how I got this 50% here or 1 over 2 here, right? I know many of you already know how to calculate 50%. It's very simple, right? Even then, let me give you a brief snapshot here. So how did I get this 1 over 2 or half? So 1 is basically the numerator, which shows the number of people I'm going to select in my sample. And 2 is the total number of people in my population. So that is the denominator. So again, in the numerator, I have the total number of people I'm going to select in my sample. So in that case, it is 1 here. And in the denominator, I'll have the total number of people in my whole population, which is 2 in this case. So that's how I got half or 50% here. All right, let's move on to the next example for an even clearer understanding. Say in my class, I do not have 2 people only. Now I have 4 people in the whole class. So I have Talal, I have Sanjana, I also have Arshad, and finally I have Autri as my student. So in the whole class, I have 4 students now. So in my population, I have 4 students in total. Now from these 4 people, let's assume that I'm going to select one of you in my sample. Now, what is the probability of one of you getting selected out of 4 people in total? Can you make a guess? Yes, you are 100% correct. The answer is 25% or 1 over 4. Again, let me briefly show you how did I get this number. So in the numerator, I have the total number of people I'm going to select in my sample. So I'm going to select one of you. So that's why 1 is the numerator here. And in the denominator, I have the total number of people I have in my whole population. So in this case, I have 4 students. So the denominator is 4. So the final answer is 1 over 4 or 25%. So again, the probability of one of you getting selected out of 4 people is 25%. Now, let me move on to the last example. Here it goes. So let's assume that in my class, I have 40 students. Now, what is the probability of one of you being randomly selected? Again, it is 1 over 40. So I'm going to select one person from a class of 40 students. So the probability of any one of you getting selected is 1 over 40. Now, in all of these 3 examples, we know what is the probability of anyone getting selected, right? So we have a known probability here. And that is one of the conditions of probability sampling, right? So yes, we have learned one of the conditions of probability sampling, which is known probability. What is that? It is the probability of any of the case being selected in my sample. Now I have another question for you. And the question is this. When can probabilities be unknown? So we have seen how can we know probability? How can we calculate probability, right? But what are some of the examples when we may not know a probability of someone being selected? So the answer is this. When you do not know the total number of people or things in your target population. So if we do not know the total number of people in my population, or if I do not have the list of people in my population, I will not be able to calculate the probability. Don't worry, you are supposed to be confused right now. I'm explaining it very thoroughly with an example here. So again, if we do not know the total number of people or things in my target population, I will not be able to calculate the probability or know the probability of someone being selected. Let me explain it here with the examples. Let's move back to the first example. How did we calculate the probability here? In the numerator, I had the number of people I'm going to select in my sample, right? And in the denominator, I had the total number of people that was in my overall population. Now, as I said just now, if I do not know the total number of people in my population, I will not be able to put any number in the denominator. And hence, I will not be able to calculate the probability, right? So in order to calculate this probability, I need to have this number. How many people are there in total in my population? If I do not have this number, I will not be able to calculate this probability. Hence, I will not be able to know the probability. Same thing applies for this example as well. Here, I know that there are 4 people in my population. Hence, I was able to calculate the probability. But in case I did not have this number, in case I did not know how many people are there in my overall population, I won't be able to calculate the probability. Now, I guess theoretically you understand when we might not be able to calculate the probability. But what about practical examples? Let me give you a practical example. Let me give you a scenario when you actually might not be able to get this number, the total number of people in your population. So here it goes. Let's assume we are going to do a study on criminal investigation. So a study on crime rates or crimes in Bangladesh. So for example, in this study, we want to sample people who have committed crime in their life. So I want to sample people from those who have criminal history or who have done some sort of criminal activities in their life. Now, what type of people belong to my population? Those who have committed crime, right? Now, I need a list of all the people who have committed crime in their life. But is it possible? Obviously, we know people like Joker, right? These are famous criminals. So we can create a list of these people, all right? However, it is not always possible to get the list of people from which to select a sample. So can you have a list of all the criminal names from which to draw a sample? No, because we may know only the famous ones, right? So we can create a list of all the famous criminals in the world. But what about the others? Maybe we do not have the list of all the criminals in Bangladesh. There are many criminals who may not be listed or known to the police as of yet. So in that case, we do not know the total number of criminals or we do not have a list of all the criminals in Bangladesh because all the criminals were not even identified at that moment. So this is one example where we may not have access to all the people belonging to a population. And that is why it may not be always possible to calculate the probability or know the exact probability of someone being selected. So yes, I guess by now all of you can calculate a probability and all of you can understand when can we know a given probability in terms of sampling and what are the cases when we might not be able to calculate the exact probability of someone being selected in my sample. So we are done with one of the conditions of probability sampling. Now let's move on to the next condition, which is equal chance of being selected. So this concept is very easy to understand. It will take just 1 minute for you to grab the concept. So what do we mean by equal chance? What is the exact meaning of equal chance of being selected? So here it goes. It means unbiased selection. Think of it like equal opportunity of employment. So there will be no bias in selection, all right? So everyone will have an equal chance of getting the job, right? In equal employment opportunity. So there will be no bias or no nepotism or no favor. So same thing applies to the concept of equal opportunity of being selected in the sample. Here as well, when we are selecting someone for a sample, we will not be biased towards somebody. We will provide every single person in the population an equal opportunity of being selected in the sample. Let me give you an example here. So in this example, when I pick one of you from Talal or Sanjana, I'm not going to be a biased faculty, right? I'm going to make sure that both of you have equal opportunity of being selected in my sample. I'm never going to say that, yes, I like Talal very much, so I'm going to be biased towards him. That's not going to happen. So obviously, both of you will have an equal opportunity of being selected in my sample. That is what equal opportunity of being selected means. Same thing applies here as well. So among the 4 people, all of you have an equal opportunity of being selected in the sample. So I'm not going to be biased here towards specific somebody. So alright, this is what we mean by equal opportunity of being selected. So again, here are the conditions. So if there is a known probability and everyone has an equal chance of being selected in the sample, in that case, that sampling method will be called probability sampling. Now, what is non-probability sampling? It's very easy. So here we fulfill none of these 2 conditions. So in non-probability sampling, not every unit of the population has equal probability of being selected. So there is no equal probability, and also the probability of being selected is not known. So here we have unknown probability of being selected, and none of the probabilities are equal. All right. So I have already given you an example of a non-probability sampling. So in this study on crime rates in Bangladesh or in any other country, we might have to do a non-probability sampling. Alright, so I have explained all the basic concepts of probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Now in the next video, I'm going to upload 4 videos on different types of probability sampling. So what is simple random sampling, what is systematic sampling, what is stratified sampling, and what is cluster sampling. So all of these videos are explained by somebody else, not me. Those are YouTube videos. Now here comes a very important announcement. Along with those videos, I'm going to upload a PDF file of 11 pages. So those 11 pages are mandatory for all of you to read because there will be questions from those pages, and that's for sure. Because again, for you to have a clear concept on sampling, you need to go through those pages very much. So we will definitely have questions from those pages in the exam. We are going to upload relevant videos along with those pages as well. So don't worry about it too much. However, after reading those pages, if you have any confusions or questions, you can come to our consultation hours and notify us about your confusions. So we will try our best to address them. So yes, we are done here. Thank you for listening to this lecture. So see you very soon in the next lecture.